We all set to go, Will? Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Kehoe. I'm the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida. If I could just take a moment and introduce you to the three individuals that are behind me. Over to the left is Daniel Dunn. He's the Assistant Special Agent in charge for FBI here in the Jacksonville Division. Next to him is Norm Dominici of the Naval Criminal Intelligence Service. He is for the Southeast Field Office, NCIS. And to my right is Mike Cochran, who's the Acting Special Agent in charge of the Homeland Security Investigations, HSI. What we'd like to talk to you about today and what we'd like to announce today are charges on 11 individuals involved in marriage fraud and bribery. You will see that there are two counts. Count one is, in fact, the marriage fraud. Count two is the bribery, and they involved the participation of servicemen, mostly from Jackson Naval Air Station. Why is this? Why do foreign nationals engage in this fraudulent conduct? Well, if you are a foreign national and you marry an American citizen, it is much easier to obtain permanent resident status here in the United States, and if you take it down the line, potentially citizenship. Let's take these counts one by one. Count one is the conspiracy. All 11 defendants are charged with a conspiracy to recruit U.S. citizens, preferably members of the United States Armed Forces, to enter sham marriages to Chinese nationals for the purpose of evading immigration laws and illicitly obtaining lawful permanent status in the United States. The marriages were made with Chinese nationals, citizens of the People's Republic of China. This indictment charges that these illicit marriages took place in a variety of places: New York, Connecticut, Las Vegas, and most importantly, here in Jacksonville. The scheme behind, and schemes, I should say, in the plural, behind these sham marriages were extensive. Not only did they go through the processes of engaging these marriages, but they took photographs of marriage ceremonies, of celebrations of the marriage themselves, so these individuals could produce them to immigration services to try to legitimize the marriages and try to demonstrate that these illegal marriages were in fact legitimate, which they were not. That is count one. Count two is the bribery count, and the bribery count involves three defendants, and we'll talk about some other defendants who have pleaded guilty to this, who were involved in a conspiracy to bribe an active duty naval serviceman and an employee at Naval Air Station Jacksonville to obtain military identification cards. You'll hear a lot about military identification cards. They're called common access cards. People in the military parlance always call them CAC cards, CAC. That's what we're talking about. Why do people want CAC cards? Well, quite frankly, not only does it help you in gaining residency statuses, permanent residency statuses, but in this instance, it gives you access to military facilities, not only here in Jacksonville and not only throughout the United States, but throughout the world. That particular bribery scheme that is in count two was in fact foiled at the early part of last year, where one of the defendants, who has already pleaded guilty by the name of Zumba, was paying $3,500 to the servicemen and the other employee at Jacksonville Air Station, and he was in fact arrested. The investigation ensued, and other people were involved, and they are the three individuals that are in count two. At the center of this entire scheme is an individual named first in the indictment, Annie Chen. Annie Chen was the organizer of this criminal conspiracy to marriage Chinese nationals to U.S. citizens. And again, they especially were focused on U.S. servicemen. In this instance, in the case we have here, they were Navy servicemen. She's also the individual who was involved with Zumba in the bribery scheme last February and traveled down to Jacksonville with others to obtain these CAC cards from the Navy. The other individual you should know just by identification through this is a woman by the name of Helen Feng. She is laced throughout all of these transactions. She was the translator throughout all of this for Annie Chen. 6 other individuals in the indictment are Chinese nationals who conspired with Chen and others to enter these sham marriages with American citizens. Several of those defendants are in the United States illegally. 3 of the defendants were non-military. They were U.S. citizens who agreed to join the conspiracy to assist in obtaining permanent residency status. There were payments throughout all of this where we can talk about, but there were payments when these marriages took place. When the marriage took place, you were paid approximately $10,000. When you, for instance, got a green card or some other identification card, like a CAC card, there will be another $10,000. There will be another $10,000 on the divorce. Generally speaking, throughout the whole matter, the average price for these illegal marriages, which went marriage, CAC card, divorce, payment, was approximately $35,000, give or take. In the indictment, we have 2 individuals who were active service at the time. That would be Deng and Holly. I also have to tell you that in addition to the 11 that we have before you in this indictment, 4 other individuals were previously charged and have pleaded guilty. They were active members and they were reservists in the Navy when this entire conspiracy was going on. They are Raymond Zumba, Brinio Arena, Morgan Chambers, and Jason Bailey. Those 4 have pleaded guilty to this charge, which takes the number we have of the 11 in this defendant plus another 4 is 15. But the 4 that I mentioned, excuse me, the 4 that I mentioned, which Zumba, Arena, Chambers, and Bailey were active duty, Zuma being a reservist at the time. As we move through this conspiracy that started in the early part of 2024, Chen and others recruited Zumba and Arena, 2 active duty servicemen at the time, to act as a recruiter, to recruit other servicemen to get involved in this illicit marriage arrangement. And I said to you previously, Zumba was part of and complicit and central to the bribery scheme, where Zumba was bribing a serviceman and another a citizen at Jacksonville Air Station to obtain the CAC cards. He has pleaded guilty to that. Again, why do they want these CAC cards? They want these CAC cards for the central reason for that they want to assist in getting permanent residency status, but they also want those CAC cards because it gives them access to military facilities throughout the world. Keep in mind that these people who were Chinese nationals were just that, Chinese nationals for PRC, and this was a scheme to try to get them access to military facilities in the United States throughout the world. U.S. Attorney's Office at that point would like to thank, obviously, the Bureau, the NCIS, and Homeland Security Investigations for their outstanding work, which took a tremendous amount of work over a significant period of time, commencing in the early part of 2024 to now. It involved in the investigation of any numbers of Chinese documents, the translation of those documents, subpoenas to obtain communications between and among these group of people to piece this entire conspiracy together that brings us to this point. There have been arrests that have taken place throughout the country, many of them up in the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere, and most of the individuals are in custody and have received an initial appearance, and we can go through them one by one if you so need at the appropriate time. At this particular point, I'd like to turn the podium over to my colleague, Mike Cochran, for his comments. Mike?
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Cochran. I'm the Acting Special Agent in Charge for Homeland Security Investigations Tampa Field Office. In that role, I'm also the co-director of the Homeland Security Task Force that covers the Middle District of Florida and the Northern District of Florida. I want to start by extending my thanks to U.S. Attorney Greg Kehoe, to NCIS Special Agent in Charge Norm Dominici, and to the FBI Special Agent in Charge Jason Carley for their incredible partnership that was instrumental in bringing these perpetrators to justice today. The investigation underscores the critical role HSI plays in protecting our nation from transnational criminal organizations that seek to exploit our customs and immigration laws and who threaten our national security. Through the dedication and expertise of the agents and the partners here today, we've successfully investigated, disrupted, and dismantled a sophisticated criminal network operating across borders. This particular scheme targeted U.S. service members and those who took part in fraudulent marriages. The goal of this scheme was to obtain immigration benefits and Department of War Common Access Cards, or CAT cards. The fraud scheme posed a serious risk to our national security, and while these arrests and convictions are critical steps in protecting our nation, the work is not done yet. The newly established Homeland Security Task Force, or HSTF, brings together federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies to work collaboratively and effectively to address public safety threats and to conduct complex criminal investigations like this one. Created under executive order, this nationwide multi-agency task force combats criminal cartels, transnational criminal organizations, foreign gangs, and cross-border human smuggling and trafficking networks with specific emphasis on protecting children. Co-led by HSI and the FBI, the HSTF will continue to pursue leadership structures, financial flows, and cross-border operations of transnational criminal organizations with the goal of dismantling them at their core. With 237 domestic field offices and 99 offices in 61 different countries throughout the world, HSI remains committed to safeguarding our national security, upholding the integrity of our customs and immigration laws, and to working hand in hand with our partners to bring these folks to justice, regardless of their location. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Mike. Next individual I'd like to bring up is Special Agent in Charge Norman Dominici of the Naval Investigative Intelligence Service. You know it probably as NCIS. Norm?
Good morning. I'm Norm Dominici, Special Agent in Charge of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service Southeast Field Office. It's an honor to be here today with my fellow law enforcement colleagues as we announce a significant milestone in this investigation. This milestone is a result of our shared commitment to protecting our national security and safeguarding our critical infrastructures from fraudulent attempts to access our military installations and exploit our U.S. service members as a pathway to U.S. citizenship. As I begin, I would first like to thank U.S. Attorney Greg Kehoe for his continued leadership and commitment to protecting our Navy and Marine Corps service members and their families. I'd also like to thank HSI Special Agent in Charge Mike Cochran and FBI Special Agent in Charge Jason Carley for their continued partnership and teamwork throughout this investigation. Our mission at NCIS is broad and multifaceted. As the federal law enforcement and counterintelligence arm of the Department of the Navy, we focus on deterring all manner of criminal activity to protect our Navy and Marine Corps communities, resources, and our military readiness. We also leverage our law enforcement and counterintelligence authorities to neutralize any foreign or domestic threat to our Department of Navy warfighting capabilities. Alongside our federal and local partners, we conduct thorough investigations, develop proactive operations to combat threats such as espionage, illicit narcotics trafficking, human trafficking, and child exploitation, bribery, and fraud, among others. On a consistent basis, our special agents around the world provide training and brief our sailors and Marines on the threats they may face from foreign intelligence collection efforts, insiders, cyber criminals, economic crimes, and more. Essentially, we work to make our sailors and Marines hard targets to provide them with the tools to identify and report potential nefarious activities to NCIS. This investigation was initiated after someone observed indicators of criminal activity and reported those to NCIS. The individual told us about concerning information involving U.S. Navy reservist Raymond Zumba and his desire to obtain fraudulent common access cards. Zumba said the common access cards would be used for Chinese nationals to obtain services afforded to military personnel and their families, such as access to military commissaries and to use the base Navy exchange. Further, that having common access cards would help them if they were ever stopped and questioned by local police. When this information was brought to NCIS, we initiated a joint investigation with our partners at HSI and the FBI, where we have NCIS special agents working on the Homeland Security Task Force and the FBI Counterintelligence Task Force. With that initial information and working with our partners, we continued to develop the investigation and ultimately arrested Zumba. Zumba's arrest led us to identify evidence of other sailors' involvement in this fraudulent marriage scheme and Zuma as a recruiter of military members to engage in this criminal activity. So I'd like to say NCIS remains steadfast in our commitment to collaborating with our partners to achieve our shared objectives of protecting those who serve our nation and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Before we take any questions, I just want to point you to one aspect of the indictment that gives you a flavor of the amount of money was involved. This was not a consistent amount of money, but if you turn to page 7, and it's in paragraph L at the top of the page, that's a typical transaction where Zumba, as a recruiter, was recruiting Chambers, who was an active duty naval individual at the time. She was a staggered approach, $10,000 at the wedding, $20,000 at the green card. That fluctuated back and forth on the 20, and there was going to be another payment of $5,000 when the divorce was settled. So that's just a flavor. When I mentioned $35,000, I just want to, the indictment gives you an example of that, but the numbers kind of fluctuated a little bit, especially on the second payment regarding the green card or the CAC card. Do we have any questions for any of the individuals on the podium? Yes, ma'am.
How were the American spouses recruited or targeted?
The American spouses, well, the naval, obviously Zumba ended up being a recruiter, Zumba and Urena, and they brought other servicemen in. For instance, Chen got some of these Chinese nationals. Obviously, she is a PRC citizen. She had Chinese nationals that she knew of, and then she was bringing in Americans to marry them. So there was some bringing those individuals together in this indictment. But she was the center point, you know, that she was the person, the focal point of this entire matter around who all of this revolved. So, so the focal point of that, as I said, is Ms. Chen, and in conjunction with Feng, who was the translator. Yes. Well, if I can just amend one of the things you said, if you look at the indictment, we go back with the Zumba payoff with the bribery scheme in February of 2025. After that bribery scheme was unfolded, and Zumba was arrested when he was at a diner here in Jacksonville paying $3,500 to the two individuals who were assisting us. That's where the whole thing unfolded, where they began to cooperate, Zumba began to cooperate, and others did, identifying participants in the matter. But it took a little time, because what we had to do is not only subpoena all of the electronic transmissions in them, but then translate them and decipher them. Some of it was very upfront. So it unfolded over probably the course of a year where we put this all together. Well, I have to say this, and I think that the work of the individuals at NCIS, I mean, Norm and his folks jumped on this right away in conjunction with Homeland Security and the Bureau, and they worked it very hard. Obviously, this is of a highly sensitive matter and extremely important. You are talking about individuals, with potential access to not only the air station here in Jacksonville, but Mayport or any other station throughout the United States. Anybody, not throughout the United States, but throughout the world, and any individual that is just free reign of walking throughout that and happens to be a PRC national is something of great significance to us. So there was great interest and a tremendous amount of work to get to the bottom of this as quickly as we can. Let me say this. We're not finished. This is an investigation that's going to continue for as long as it takes to get to the bottom of this ring. And if we discover any other ring, then we'll go after that as well. But we are not finished with this ring. Not in every instance. If you read the indictment, there are instances where it is just a Chinese national marrying an American citizen. Why do they want that? Obviously, they want to show that they're married, but it assists those individuals to get a permanent residence card, to get permanent residency here in the United States. So many of these involved servicemen who had the potential to get these individual CAC cards. But I don't want to mislead you. That's not true across the board. There are several of them that just were American citizens marrying Chinese nationals from the PRC to get permanent resident status. It just makes it easier. Once you are married to someone who's a foreign national, you kind of jump to the head of the line, for lack of a better term, to get you a green card and get you permanent residency status much quicker than if you just happen to be an individual who is not married to an American citizen. So it was a dual purpose. When we have servicemen, obviously the CAC cards come into play, and they were very interested in getting CAC cards. And I'm sorry? Well, if you are married to an individual, that individual is entitled to a common access card to get on a base. And for most people who have CAC cards, it's to do groceries, it's to do the laundry, it's to do use all the facilities at our military bases throughout the country and throughout the world. That's why spouses and family members need CAC cards. In this instance, with PRD nationals, it also gives them access to see what's going on the base, unfortunately. I mean, at this point, all we can say is that they are PRC nationals, that we can tell give you the facts that they were very interested in getting these CAC cards as quickly as possible. Where they were taking that information continues to be under investigation. Some of them were American citizens. So if you look through, and I'll just go through this with you, 6 were Chinese nationals, and 3 were U.S. citizens. Of those 3 that were U.S. citizens, 2, Deng and Holly, in this indictment, were active naval service members at the time. So again, 6 Chinese nationals, again, another 3 U.S. citizens, that 2 of them were members of the Navy, Deng and Ali. Yes, sir. Yes. No. Appears to be just, from all indications, just a American citizen who engaged in the transaction to get paid for the marriage, get paid for this marriage scheme. All U.S. citizens, all former active service members. Zuma was a reservist, but the other ones were active service. Holly and Deng and Holly at the time were active duty, not just reservists. So you can appreciate the concern about all of this when it came to the fore, and NCIS jumped on this with HSI and the Bureau. Okay? Yes, sir. Yes. The bribery scheme. He is. I can't answer that, and I don't want to mislead you on the theory that the knee bone is connected to the shin bone. I mean, it may be, but I can't tell you definitively what he was involved in. Clearly, he was involved in this transaction in Chicago, but I don't know the answer to that, so I don't want to mislead you. Well, I mean, we focus on this now because it's a crime, and of course it jeopardizes the safety and security of our military facilities. I mean, we will focus on this anytime it comes on before us to investigate. I mean, there's no trigger point about this particular matter other than the fact that this is a criminal matter that is jeopardizing the safety and the security of the United States, not only, illegal alien citizenship, but also how it's jeopardizing our military facilities. So that's the trigger point. I mean, you have that kind of danger that is out there. You have to address it, and you have to meet it straight on, and that's it. At this point, we know that they wanted to get CAC cards when it was possible. And all I'm saying to you is they want CAC cards, and that when you get a CAC card, Common Access Card, that allows you onto a military facilities all over the United States and the world. And you can walk around, you can roam around, you can use the various facilities. What they were going to do with that information, that is unknown at this point. Yes, sir. On the marriage fraud, it's 5 years. On the bribery scheme, it's 5 years. But I will say to you that everything is continuing to evolve. We had to take this whole operation down. Is why we moved ahead now. We had to bring this to the, forefront and to stop any of this potential fraudulent activity. So that's why we indicted this now. It took a little time because we had to, in fact, translate all of this, which was, in Chinese. And while I have some very, very intelligent guys working for us, like David Mizrobian in our office, he doesn't speak Chinese. So he needed a little help. Anything else, folks? Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good morning. Take care.